The scent of sugar and forced smiles hung heavy in the air, a cloying perfume I'd come to associate with any gathering orchestrated by my mother. Chloe's bridal shower was no exception. It was a symphony of pastel pinks and baby blues, of meticulously arranged cucumber sandwiches and the gentle clinking of champagne flutes, all underscored by a low hum of polite, almost competitive, adulation for my sister. Chloe, bless her heart, floated through it all like a swan, radiant in a white linen dress, her laughter light and genuine as she unwrapped another piece of her meticulously curated future. I, on the other hand, felt like a crow that had accidentally wandered into a dove convention. My mother, a vision in tasteful beige, glided to my side, her hand briefly, coolly, resting on my arm. Her breath, smelling faintly of a mimosa she'd nursed for the better part of an hour, tickled my ear. "At least she found someone to love her," she whispered, her voice a silken barb meant just for me, sharp and precise. She was Chloe, of course. The someone was Mark, Chloe's affable, if somewhat bland, fiancé, currently beaming from across the room. And the unspoken, unlike you, well, that hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating as the humid summer afternoon. My smile, already a carefully constructed edifice, threatened to crumble. I could feel the heat rise in my cheeks, a blush of shame and anger I'd spent a lifetime trying to suppress. Around us, the polite chatter continued, oblivious. No one else heard the pin drop, the tiny, lethal sound of my mother's casual cruelty. But I heard it. It echoed in the sudden, tight silence within me. If you've ever felt that subtle sting, that casual cruelty from someone who should build you up, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe. It means more than you can imagine. Life in our family had always been a quiet, relentless exercise in comparison, a stage play where Chloe was eternally cast as the lead, and I, her older sister, was the understudy who never got her cue. Chloe was the sunbeam, effortless and bright, warming everyone in her orbit. I was perhaps the diligent moon, reflecting light, sometimes providing a different kind of glow, but never the main event. She collected accolades and admirers with an ease that baffled me. I meticulously planned each step, only to often find myself tripping over my own feet, or so it felt under Mom's watchful gaze. Mom, I try to tell myself, didn't intend to be cruel. Her remarks were just observations. Sharp, finely honed observations that, over decades, felt like 1,000 tiny paper cuts, each one small, insignificant on its own, but collectively, they bled you dry, leaving you anemic and perpetually on edge. My relationship with Liam was my hidden harbor, my quiet rebellion against the family narrative. He was a landscape architect, his hands often stained with earth, his mind full of green, growing things. We'd been together for 3 years, a slow, steady burn of shared laughter over burnt dinners, comfortable silences during long drives, and an understanding that ran deeper than words.
He knew about Mom.
He'd seen the shadow she cast, held me when one of her observations had landed with particular force. He was my anchor, the calm center in the meticulously curated storm of my mother's expectations. With Liam, I wasn't Chloe's sister, or the quiet one, I was just Sarah. And Sarah, he often told me, his eyes sincere and warm, was more than enough. He was the only person who'd ever made me believe it, even fleetingly. We lived in a small apartment filled with books and plants and the comfortable clutter of a shared life. My own career, a fledgling graphic design business I ran from a corner of our living room, was something I rarely spoke of at family gatherings. Mom had once referred to it as my little hobby, a dismissive phrase that had effectively silenced any further discussion on my part. Why invite the critique? Why lay bare another part of myself for her careful dissection? So, I worked in quiet, pouring my creativity into logos and websites, finding a satisfaction there that was mine alone, untainted by comparison. Liam, of course, was my biggest cheerleader, his belief in my talent unwavering. He'd frame my first successful project's proof and hang it above my desk, a silent testament against the louder, more critical voices in my life. The embossed lavender envelope landed on the doormat with a gentle thud, but its presence felt heavy, almost ominous. Chloe's bridal shower. The calligraphy, elegant and looping, seemed to mock me. It wasn't just an invitation to a party. It was a summons to another command performance of the perfect daughter and her proud mother, with me relegated to the role of slightly awkward, perpetually single background scenery. I found myself staring at it for a long time, the pastel card cool beneath my fingertips. The thought of navigating that room, the subtle and not-so-subtle comparisons, the well-meaning but pitying glances from distant aunts, made my stomach clench. Liam found me still holding it when he came home, his keys jangling as he dropped them into the ceramic bowl by the door.
He didn't need to ask.
He saw the invitation, saw the look on my face, and understood. He came over, wrapping his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. His warmth was a comfort, a shield. "We go," he said, his voice firm but gentle, his breath stirring my hair.
Together.
"You're not facing this arena alone, Arena." That's what it felt like. He always found the right words. His hand covered mine, still clutching the invitation. "Besides," he added, a smile in his voice, "I've never seen your Aunt Mildred's infamous hat collection in person. This could be my only chance." I let out a shaky laugh. "Her hats are a force of nature. You've been warned." "I live for danger," he whispered, kissing my temple. And so, the preparations began. Not just the search for an outfit that would feel like armor, something that could deflect the inevitable slings and arrows of maternal commentary, but the mental bracing, the rehearsing of neutral responses, the fortifying of my inner walls. Liam helped. He listened as I voiced my anxieties, offered counterarguments to the negative scripts playing in my head, and reminded me, again and again, that my worth wasn't determined by my mother's approval or my marital status. He was my strategist, my confidant, my one-man emotional support army. The day of the shower dawned bright and oppressively sunny. I chose a dress in a deep teal, a color that felt strong and self-contained, unlike the frothy pastels I knew would dominate the event. Liam wore a light blue shirt that brought out the color of his eyes, his quiet solidity a comfort even before we left the apartment. As we drove, I practiced deep breathing, a technique Liam had taught me. Inhale calm, exhale mom. "You okay?" he asked, his hand briefly covering mine on the center console. "Peachy," I said, trying for a breezy tone that didn't quite land. "Just mentally preparing for the gauntlet." "Remember," he said, his gaze steady on the road, but his attention entirely on me, "we can have a secret signal. If it gets too much, you tug your earlobe twice, and I'll suddenly develop a coughing fit so severe we have to make an emergency exit." I smiled. A genuine one this time. "You do that?" "I'd fake a moderately convincing alien abduction if it meant getting you out of a tough spot," he said, deadpan. The laughter that bubbled up felt like a release valve. With Liam by my side, perhaps this wouldn't be so unbearable. Perhaps. The shower was, predictably, a confection of sweetness and light, held in the garden of one of Mom's closest friends. Pink and white balloons bobbed gently in the breeze, tables were laden with delicate pastries and fruit skewers, and the air was thick with the scent of roses and expensive perfume. Mom, the orchestrator of this perfect scene, was in her element, flitting between groups of guests, her smile radiant, her voice carrying easily as she accepted compliments on Chloe's behalf, on the party's behalf, on life's general wonderfulness when it involved her favored daughter. When she spotted us, her smile tightened almost imperceptibly for a fraction of a second before blooming again, perhaps a little too brightly. "Sarah." "Liam. You made it." "Wonderful." She kissed the air near my cheek, then offered Liam a warmer, more appraising handshake. "Liam, so good of you to come." Chloe will be thrilled. The implication, as always, was that my presence was merely tolerated, while Liam's added a certain something. "Wouldn't miss it, Patricia," Liam said, his smile easy and charming. He always called her Patricia, a subtle refusal to adopt the more familial Mom, that she seemed to expect from anyone close to Chloe. "Oh, Sarah, you're here? Find a seat. Dear, don't just hover by the punch bowl," Mom directed, already turning to greet another arrival. Hover? I'd been standing still for precisely 10 seconds, trying to get my bearings, trying to blend into the floral wallpaper that seemed to be actively rejecting my teal dress. We found a small table slightly off to the side, a strategic outpost from which to observe the proceedings. Liam, bless him, immediately engaged me in a quiet conversation about a ridiculous squirrel he'd seen trying to steal a whole bagel that morning, his storytelling a welcome distraction. The gift opening began. Chloe, seated on a white wicker throne adorned with ribbons, unwrapped each present with genuine delight, her thank yous effusive and sincere. She was good at this, at making everyone feel appreciated. I watched her, a familiar mix of emotions swirling within me, a genuine happiness for my sister, who deserved all this joy, and a dull, aching awareness of my own perceived deficiencies, amplified by the setting. "Chloe, that lingerie set is divine. You always know what suits you, darling," cooed Aunt Carol, her voice dripping with admiration. Mom nodded in enthusiastic agreement from her position beside the throne, her gaze flicking briefly towards me, a silent, unconscious comparison. Did I always know what suited me? Probably not, according to the maternal measuring stick. Liam's hand found mine under the table, his fingers giving mine a brief, firm squeeze. A silent, "I'm here. You're not alone," it was a lifeline. I sipped my lemonade, the sweetness cloying on my tongue, and tried to focus on Liam's ankle, which he was subtly jiggling to the beat of some internal rhythm, a small, endearing habit I knew so well. Little anchors. I focused on the little anchors. The parade of presents continued, a high-end blender, a set of gleaming knives, a cashmere throw. With each gift, the chorus of oohs and ahs seemed to grow louder, the collective joy almost palpable. Mom beamed, her pride in Chloe radiating like a physical force. I tried to match the enthusiasm, offering smiles and nods at appropriate intervals, but inside, I felt a growing sense of detachment, as if I were watching the scene through a thick pane of glass. Then came the small, almost imperceptible shift. Mom, in a brief lull while Chloe was thanking someone for a particularly elaborate set of bath oils, drifted closer to our table. She picked up a petit four, examined it critically, then set it back down. Her eyes scanned the crowd, a queen surveying her court, before they landed on me. There was a peculiar expression on her face, a sort of thoughtful pity that made my skin crawl. This was the prelude. I knew it, the way a rabbit knows the shadow of a hawk. She leaned in, her voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper that always signaled a comment intended to land with precision. This was when she delivered the line, the one that would echo in my mind for days. At least she found someone to love her. The words, soft as they were, hit me with the force of a physical blow. My breath hitched. The carefully constructed smile on my face froze, then felt like it might crack and fall away in pieces. The room, with its cheerful chatter and pastel decorations, suddenly receded, the sounds blurring into a dull roar. All I could hear was her voice, that silken, pitying tone, and the unspoken words that followed. "Unlike you." I couldn't look at her. I stared fixedly at the melting ice cubes in my lemonade, watching a droplet of condensation trace a path down the side of the glass. It felt like a tear, a single, cold drop of the misery that was welling up inside me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shout. What about me? Don't I deserve love too? Am I so unlovable in your eyes? But the words caught in my throat, a suffocating knot of years of unspoken hurt and frustration. Across the small table, Liam's easygoing expression had vanished. His eyes, when they met mine, were dark, narrowed. He'd heard it. Or, if not the exact words, he'd seen the impact. He saw the shift in me, the sudden pallor, the way my hands clenched in my lap. His jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. He didn't say anything, not then. There was nothing he could say in that moment that wouldn't cause a scene, and causing a scene was the last thing I wanted. Or perhaps, deep down, it was exactly what I wanted, but I lacked the courage. Mom, seemingly oblivious to the grenade she'd just lobbed into my carefully maintained composure, straightened up, her social smile firmly back in place, and drifted off to compliment someone on their hat. She delivered her payload and moved on, leaving me to deal with the wreckage. The rest of the gift opening passed in a haze. I made the appropriate noises, smiled when expected, but inside, I was reeling. The joy of the occasion had been leached away, replaced by a cold, familiar ache. Liam's presence was a steadying warmth beside me, but even he couldn't fully penetrate the fog of my mother's making. He kept shooting me concerned glances, his brow furrowed. I tried to offer a reassuring smile, but I suspected it looked more like a grimace. During a brief interlude, when Chloe was circulating, thanking guests individually, and Mom was engrossed in a conversation with her oldest friend, Liam leaned in. "You okay?" he murmured, his voice low and concerned. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak. "Her timing is impeccable as always," he said, a note of bitterness in his voice that was rare for him. He reached out, his fingers briefly brushing mine. "Don't let her ruin this. Don't let her words take up space in your head, Sarah." Easy for him to say, I thought, then immediately felt a pang of guilt. He was trying to help. He was always trying to help. "I know," I whispered, managing a weak smile. Easier said than done. The party wore on. More champagne was poured, more polite laughter echoed through the garden. I felt increasingly like an observer, a ghost at the feast. Each happy exclamation for Chloe felt like another small twist of a knife. It wasn't Chloe's fault, of course. She was genuinely happy, and I was happy for her. But Mom's words had cast a pall over everything, coloring my perceptions, magnifying my insecurities. I excused myself at one point, seeking refuge in the cool dimness of the house's powder room. Staring at my reflection in the ornate mirror, I saw the strain around my eyes, the forced brightness of my smile. I looked tired. Tired of trying, tired of falling short, tired of the constant, subtle erosion of my self-worth. Taking a deep breath, I splashed cold water on my face, trying to wash away the sting of Mom's comment. It lingered, an unwelcome guest. I reapplied my lipstick, a small act of defiance, a fresh coat of armor. When I reemerged, Liam was waiting near the doorway, a glass of water in his hand. "Thought you might need this," he said, his expression gentle. "Thanks," I said, taking a grateful sip. His thoughtfulness was a balm. He guided me back towards the garden, but instead of rejoining the main throng, he led me to a slightly more secluded bench near a rose trellis, away from the direct line of maternal sight. "Listen to me," he said, turning to face me, his eyes serious and intense. He took both my hands in his. His were warm and strong, a stark contrast to the cold dread that had settled in my stomach. "What she said, it's not true. It's a reflection of her, not you. You know that, right?" I nodded, but a tear escaped and traced a hot path down my cheek. He gently wiped it away with his thumb. "Sarah," he began, his voice softer now, laced with an emotion that made my heart ache in a different way, a hopeful way. "I wasn't planning on doing this today. I had this whole other idea, something quiet, just us, but damn it, she doesn't get to define your happiness. She doesn't get to make you feel like you're not worthy of love." My breath caught. I stared at him, my mind struggling to process his words, the sudden shift in his demeanor. "I have the ring," he confessed, his gaze holding mine unwavering. His hand tightened on mine, then he reached into his jacket pocket. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a wild, frantic bird. I've had it for months, waiting for what I thought was the perfect moment, but you know what? I think the perfect moment is any moment I get to tell you how much I love you. And maybe the perfect moment is right now. Maybe the perfect moment is the one where we don't let her voice be the loudest one in the room." A wild, reckless, terrifying hope unfurled in my chest. Here,
Now?
amidst the pastel bunting and the saccharine chorus of Chloe's bridal shower, it was audacious. It was insane. It was a lifeline. Tears were streaming down my face now, but they weren't tears of hurt anymore. They were tears of shock, of dawning joy, of a fierce, unexpected defiance. "Liam," I whispered, my voice choked. "Let me do this, Sarah," he said, his eyes pleading, yet full of a resolute strength. "Let me show you. Let everyone see." The cloying sweetness of the party, the polite laughter, the carefully curated perfection, it all seemed to fade into the background. All I could see was Liam, his face earnest, his eyes full of love. A love that wasn't conditional, that wasn't measuring me against anyone else. A small, almost hysterical laugh escaped me. "Here." He grinned, a flash of the boyish charm that had first captivated me. "Why not? Best way to change the narrative, right?" Suddenly, the garden didn't feel like a pastel prison anymore. It felt like a stage. And the spotlight, I realized with a dizzying surge of adrenaline, was about to shift. The thought was terrifying, exhilarating. For years, I had shrunk from the spotlight, preferring the shadows. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to step into the light, on my own terms. The next hour? Or was it minutes? Time seemed to warp and stretch, passed in a blur of heightened senses. Every polite smile I exchanged, every nod of feigned interest in a conversation about wedding venues or floral arrangements, felt like a performance. Beneath the surface, my heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a wild drumbeat accompanying the saccharine soundtrack of the bridal shower. My palms were damp. Liam, beside me, was an oasis of calm, though I could feel the thrum of anticipation radiating from him too. We were a conspiracy of two, harboring a secret that felt momentous, world-altering. What if Mom exploded? The thought sent a jolt of pure fear through me. Her anger wasn't loud or dramatic. It was cold, cutting, designed to inflict maximum emotional damage with minimum fuss. What if Chloe, my sweet, usually easygoing sister, felt her day was ruined, her spotlight stolen? A wave of guilt washed over me, potent and familiar. This was her day, her celebration. Was it fair to detonate this kind of bomb in the middle of it? But then, Mom's whispered words echoed again. At least she found someone to love her, and a different feeling surged through me. A fierce, protective anger. Not just for myself, but for Liam, for the love we shared. A love that deserved to be celebrated, not hidden away or diminished by comparison. This wasn't about upstaging Chloe. It was about reclaiming something vital for myself, about drawing a line in the sand. I caught Mom watching me a couple of times, a slight, curious frown creasing her perfectly smooth brow. Did she sense something? A shift in the atmospheric pressure? I tried to keep my expression placid, neutral, but inside, a storm was gathering. Liam caught my eye and gave a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. It was time.
Or almost time.
My breath hitched. The air suddenly felt thick, charged. Chloe was in the midst of unwrapping a ridiculously oversized crystal vase, a gift from a distant, wealthy aunt. She was exclaiming over its beauty, her face flushed with pleasure. Mark stood beside her, beaming proudly. This was the pinnacle of Chloe's moment, the apex of the celebration. And Liam chose this precise instant. He cleared his throat, a small, polite sound that nevertheless seemed to cut through the general hum of conversation. He tapped his champagne flute with a knife, the clear, ringing chimes silencing the remaining chatter. A hush fell over the garden. Every head turned. Even Mom, who had been engrossed in a low-voiced conversation with one of her cronies, paused, a half-eaten cucumber sandwich suspended midair, her eyes narrowing slightly as she focused on Liam. This was it. No turning back. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. Every single pair of eyes in that manicured garden, under that relentlessly cheerful sun, turned towards Liam, and then, inevitably, flickered towards me. I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely ready. "Excuse me, everyone," Liam began, his voice surprisingly steady, carrying clearly across the suddenly silent garden. He held his champagne flute aloft. "I'd like to propose a toast." A few polite smiles, murmurs of anticipation. Toasts were standard fare at such events. Mom relaxed fractionally, probably assuming he was about to offer some generic good wishes. To Chloe and Mark, Liam continued, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on my sister and her fiancé. He smiled warmly at them. May your life together be filled with all the joy, laughter, and happiness you so clearly deserve. We're all so thrilled for you. Polite applause rippled through the guests. Chloe beamed, mouthing a thank you to him. Mark clapped him on the shoulder. So far, so normal. Then, Liam's demeanor shifted. He lowered his glass slightly, and his expression softened, becoming intensely focused. He turned, slowly and deliberately, away from Chloe and Mark, and faced me. The garden held its breath. I could feel my own breath trapped in my lungs. But there's someone else here today, he said, his voice dropping a little, becoming more intimate, yet still carrying to every corner of the suddenly rapt audience. Someone who deserves all the joy in the world. Someone who has shown me what true strength, resilience, and unwavering kindness look like. Someone who has taught me what love, in its deepest, truest sense, really means. My heart hammered. This was happening. This was really happening. He was walking towards me, his eyes locked on mine, a universe of emotions swirling in their depths. The distance between his table and mine seemed to stretch for miles. Each step, he took a slow-motion beat in the unfolding drama. He stopped directly in front of me. The world seemed to shrink, to contain only the two of us, and yet, I was acutely aware of every single person watching. I could hear a faint gasp from somewhere nearby, the rustle of fabric as someone shifted uncomfortably, or perhaps leaned in closer. And then he dropped to one knee. A collective intake of breath swept through the garden. It was audible, a soft whoosh of surprise. I saw my Aunt Carol's hand fly to her pearls, her eyes wide. I saw Chloe's jaw drop, her initial surprise quickly morphing into a look of dawning, incredulous joy. From his pocket, Liam produced a small, velvet box. He opened it. Nestled inside, a diamond glittered, catching the sunlight, scattering tiny rainbows. It was exquisite. Simple, elegant, perfect. Sarah, he said, his voice thick with emotion now, but clear and strong, each word resonating in the charged silence. You are my everything. My best friend, my rock, my greatest adventure. You make my world brighter, better, more meaningful in every conceivable way. I can't imagine a single day without you by my side. Tears were welling in my eyes, blurring his beloved face. Will you marry me? Time stopped.
Completely.
For a heartbeat, the only sound was the frantic thumping of my own heart. Then, my gaze, almost involuntarily, flickered to my mother. She was frozen. Utterly, completely frozen. Her polite social smile was plastered on her face, but it was a grotesque caricature, stretched too tight, her eyes wide and blank with disbelief. The half-eaten cucumber sandwich was still clutched in her hand, forgotten. She looked like a statue, a mannequin caught mid-gesture, all animation, all composure, utterly shattered. The mask had not just slipped, it had disintegrated. For the first time in my life, I saw her completely unguarded, completely floored. A sob escaped me, a strange mixture of overwhelming joy and a lifetime of pent-up emotion. Tears streamed down my face unchecked. Yes, I choked out, the word thick with tears, but unequivocal.
Yes.
Of course, yes. The garden erupted. Cheers, applause, whoops of delight. It was a wave of genuine, unrestrained happiness that washed over me, so different from the polite, measured enthusiasm of earlier. It felt cleansing. Liam's face broke into a radiant grin. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. He stood, pulling me up with him, and kissed me, deeply, passionately, oblivious to the audience, or perhaps pointedly aware of them. The applause swelled. As Liam and I finally broke apart, breathless and beaming, the ring a sparkling testament on my hand, Chloe was the first to reach us. She practically flew across the grass, her earlier surprise transformed into pure, unadulterated joy. "Oh my God, Sarah. Liam. This is amazing," she cried, throwing her arms around me in a fierce, heartfelt hug. Then she hugged Liam, equally enthusiastically. There wasn't a trace of resentment, no hint of feeling upstaged. Only genuine, sisterly happiness. It was a balm to a part of my soul I hadn't even realized was still aching. "I'm so happy for you both," she exclaimed, her eyes shining. Then, she turned to the still buzzing, slightly stunned room. Her voice, usually soft, rang out bright and clear, full of excitement. "And everyone, this is incredible. Mom, isn't this wonderful? Sarah deserves this so much." All eyes, including mine, swiveled to Mom. She was still standing in the same spot, looking like she'd been struck by lightning. Her face was pale, her expression a confused medley of shock and something else I couldn't quite decipher. Maybe dawning horror? She managed a weak, jerky nod, her smile still a frozen rictus. But Chloe wasn't finished. She took my hand, her grip warm and supportive, and then took Liam's. "And you know what else is amazing?" she announced, her voice filled with pride that seemed to catch everyone, especially me, off guard. "Liam isn't just the most wonderful fiancé Sarah could ever ask for. He's also the incredible partner Sarah's been working with to build her design business from the ground up. You know, Bright Spot Designs?" A few murmurs of recognition. I'd sent out a few discreet announcements to family, but Mom had never acknowledged them. Chloe continued, her voice gaining even more excitement. "Well, I'm not sure if Sarah's told many of you yet, because she's so modest, but Bright Spot Designs just landed that huge, prestigious contract to redesign all the branding and public spaces for the new city Botanical Gardens renovation project." A new wave of gasps rippled through the guests, louder this time, tinged with awe. This was big news. The Botanical Gardens project was a massive, high-profile city initiative, something that would make any designer's career. My mother's face, if it was possible, went even paler. Her eyes, which had been fixed on the ring on my finger, now darted to me, then to Chloe, then back to me, wide with an astonishment that bordered on disbelief. She knew absolutely nothing about this. I'd kept it completely quiet, especially from her. After years of her dismissing my little hobby, of her subtle and not-so-subtle suggestions that I pursue something more stable, I hadn't dared share my biggest triumph with her. I hadn't wanted to see it minimized, or worse, met with that faint, damning praise she reserved for things she didn't truly value. Liam squeezed my hand and gave me a tiny, almost imperceptible wink. This glorious, unexpected bombshell, had been his idea too, cooked up with a supportive Chloe just the day before, contingent on my saying yes. Not just a proposal, but a full-scale declaration of my independence, my capability, my success, delivered right in the heart of my mother's meticulously controlled universe. Suddenly, her earlier whisper, "At least she found someone to love her," echoed in my mind, but this time, it sounded utterly, laughably ridiculous. I hadn't just found someone. I had found love. Yes, a magnificent, unwavering love. But I had also built something. I had achieved something significant on my own terms, with a partner who saw my worth. All of it, from the very beginning. The victory wasn't just sweet, it was profound. It wasn't just about being chosen. It was about choosing myself, my path, and having that choice so spectacularly validated. The ground beneath my feet felt solid, self-made. The rest of the bridal shower unfolded in a joyous, slightly chaotic blur. The atmosphere had completely transformed. The polite, restrained elegance had given way to a genuine, effervescent excitement. People crowded around Liam and me, offering heartfelt congratulations, admiring the ring, and now, asking eager questions about Bright Spot Designs and the Botanical Gardens project. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was the center of positive attention at a family gathering, and it wasn't because I was an object of pity or concern, but because I was happy, successful, loved. My mother remained a figure on the periphery of this new, vibrant energy. She eventually made her way over, her movements stiff, her smile still looking like it had been painted on and had slightly smudged. "Well, Sarah," she said, her voice a little too high-pitched, a little too brittle. "This is all quite a surprise." She glanced at Liam, then back at me, her eyes finally focusing, though they still held a dazed, unsettled quality. "Congratulations. To you both." It was the correct sentiment, delivered with the correct intonation, but it lacked any real warmth, any maternal joy. It felt like an obligation fulfilled. And, for the first time, it didn't matter. Her approval, or lack thereof, felt strangely irrelevant. I had Liam's unwavering love. I had Chloe's enthusiastic support. I had my burgeoning success, a testament to my own hard work and talent. I had, in essence, found my own light, and it was bright enough that her shadow no longer seemed so imposing. "Thank you, Mom," I said, my voice calm and steady. I even managed a small, genuine smile. She lingered for a moment, as if wanting to say more, or perhaps trying to process the seismic shift that had just occurred in her carefully ordered world. But then, one of her friends called her over, and she turned away, rejoining the familiar currents of her social circle, though she seemed, for the rest of the afternoon, somewhat adrift. Many of the other relatives, who had previously offered me those kindly, pitying smiles, now approached with a newfound respect in their eyes. Aunt Carol, she of the pearl-clutching surprise, gushed about the ring and then, to my astonishment, asked for my business card, mentioning a friend who needed a logo designed. It was a small thing, but it felt significant. Later, as the party began to wind down and guests started to depart, Chloe pulled me aside, her eyes still sparkling. "Sarah, I am so incredibly happy for you," she said, her voice earnest. She squeezed my hands tightly. "And not just about the engagement, though that's obviously amazing. Liam is wonderful. But the business, that contract.
That's all you, Sarah.
I'm so incredibly proud of you. You've worked so hard for this, and you kept it so quiet. I guess I was scared," I admitted, a confession I'd rarely made to anyone but Liam. "Scared it wouldn't work out, scared of, well, you know." Chloe nodded, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "I know. But you did it. And it's brilliant." She hugged me again, a proper, strong hug. "We should celebrate properly, just us. Maybe a double wedding planning session?" she suggested, her eyes dancing. The thought, which once might have filled me with dread at the inevitable comparisons, now sparked a genuine thrill. As Liam and I finally said our goodbyes, stepping out of the meticulously manicured garden and into the late afternoon sun, I felt lighter than I had in years. The air seemed fresher, the colors more vibrant. Liam took my hand, his fingers lacing through mine, the diamond on my finger catching the light, a brilliant, joyful spark. "You okay?" he asked, his gaze soft and searching. "More than okay," I said, leaning my head against his shoulder as we walked towards the car. "I feel free." The ghost of my mother's whisper, "At least she found someone to love her," still echoed faintly in the recesses of my mind, but it had lost its power, its venom. It was just a sound now, a relic from a past I was decisively, joyfully stepping away from. My future wasn't about finding someone to validate me. It was about building a life filled with love I already had, success I was already creating, and a sense of self that was, finally, unshakably my own. The road ahead felt open, bright, and wonderfully, thrillingly mine. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever had to find your own light when someone tried to dim it, I'd love to hear a version in the comments. Thanks for being here with me today. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life.